What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Ian, back with another video. And today we're going to be covering the newest chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen 212. And I must say, there was some huge revelations happening in this chapter. So let's go and get right into it. Now, the chapter starts out with us seeing Megami's sister being introduced to Megami after a while. And he remarks that it's been over a year and like 7 months. And it's just like, well, dang, that no wonder why it's so hard to walk. You know, just regular banter. This is a little bit before the current events, and we fast forward, and Megami's sister is just out there, and they're just going back and forth between him and Megami, and it's kind of like a sibling moment. And Yuji's in the background, and they're just thinking. He starts to feel a little bit remorse because he knows he caused Gojo and Megami both issues. And right here you could just kind of just tell the tone was kind of weird, because it's like he's having this remorse, but he's thinking everything's gonna get better because he's like, once Gojo we get Gojo from the back of the prison realm, everything will be all right. And you just know that if you follow JJK, that's not the case. It usually doesn't go the way you think it's gonna go. So, and eventually things go to shit like they usually do. And it turns out that Megami's sister is not actually his sister. It's actually an old sorcerer, Yozoro. I'm terrible with these name pronunciations, but she's basically taken over Megami's sister's body as a host. And she adds this rule to where you're able to enter and leave the colonies freely. This is basically going to allow more bloodshed because you're able to choose different battlefields, and it's all in hopes for her to find her worthy opponent, that being Sukuna. And it's ironic because I don't think she actually knows that Sukuna is actually right there. And at the end of the chapter, it's kind of, we'll find out later on, but like, does she realize that Sukuna is right there after what happens? So as Yozoro starts to fly away, you know, as she's going in search of Sukuna or wherever she's heading, Yuji and the angel start to chase her. And it is then when we have Sukuna pop up on Yuji's face, and he says the words "in chain," which turns out to be the phrase that Sukuna had made his binding vow way back in chapter 11 with Yuji. And it's a callback because he literally reiterates some of the verbiage that he said back then, where he says, "We'll see something interesting." And it had a picture of Fushiguro and whatnot. And in this binding vow, he's able to take control of Yuji's body for 1 minute, but he can't harm or kill anybody while he's in that control. And the other condition is Yuji won't remember this contract. It's kind of weird because, I mean, granted, he doesn't actually, we don't know exactly to what extent what he did to the angel, but he does put her to sleep or knock her out. So did he just just gently put her to sleep with some type of, curse technique or whatever? But I mean, when you say stuff like harm somebody, it's a very slippery slope. But whatever the case, he's in control now, and we don't know what exactly he's planning, but it's a nice callback that way back in chapter 11 that we're finally seeing something happen, because for the longest everybody's been speculating. It was like, well, damn, what is this vow, and what is he gonna do, and when is he gonna use it, and what's he keep worrying about Megami for? And now we kind of have like a good idea of what it is. We then see Sukuna says that this is going to be a gamble, and he's not sure if it'll actually work. But he rips off his finger that is imbued with cursed energy. You can see he rips off his finger and starts to boast about how dumb Yuji is, because in the contract, Yuji never stated that he couldn't harm himself. And it's kind of foolish that he didn't, because he ended up in that situation where he had to make that binding vow because Sukuna ripped his own heart out earlier. So it is very foolish of Yuji that he never saw that or never thought about that. Granted, probably a lot of people didn't really think about that either. So, and nevertheless, Megami starts to summon, to fight Sukuna, but however, Sukuna rushes in, stops his hand signs, and he basically grabs his mouth and he sticks the finger in his mouth. So immediately you're like, what the fuck? So next thing you know, the panel cuts over and you see him uttering words to Yuji. Yuji's now back in control of his body, but he's terrified because he looks at Megumi and he sees Sukuna is in control of Megumi's body now. Now this is where everything changes drastically because there's so many ways that you can go with this, because you can think, is it temporary because it was one finger and it was just with a little bit of energy imbued in it, so it's not actually like Sukuna's real finger. So will it just be like temporary, or will now Megumi have just, will he have a part of Sukuna in him? Does that mean Yuji's no longer has Sukuna in him, even though he has like a total, I think 14. He had a total of like 15 fingers at the time, so now he has 14 fingers. It's kind of weird. Also, is Yuji's finger even like healed after Sukuna ripped it? Did he at least goddamn heal his finger back before he, transfer bodies, I guess? But probably not. Sukuna's kind of an asshole like that. But this really opens up doors now, because even whether or not you're like, a power scaler, or you debate whether or not Gojo versus Sukuna was actually like one-sided, or whoever you had in it, this definitely opens the door for saying that at the time Sukuna would have lost to Gojo, because Sukuna felt the need to go out and get the one person that, there's actually two reasons why grabbing Megumi is actually the best idea. It's increasing his chances tenfold against somebody like Gojo. Is you have one, Megumi was literally pretty much raised by Gojo. We see this constantly throughout the series, that Gojo's with the young Megumi, and he did that obviously because of a debt to Toji, as Toji was dying and whatnot. And then two, the other important one is, as Gojo said, the last person of the clan that could use the same abilities that Megumi has, him and the last six eyes user died together fighting. So, and obviously you can speculate to say Gojo is stronger than the last one, right? So, and you don't know how strong Megumi is compared to the other person. But it's still, it just adds it, because when you add Sukuna on top of that, then boom, it's definitely too much for Gojo right now. So I just think that just opens the door widely, because now that makes sense, because for the longest time we're like, damn, if Gojo gets out, the series is over, and it's kind of reiterated that, because at the beginning of the chapter, like I said, Yuji's like, he's happy because he's like, finally, once we get Gojo out of the seal, everything will go back to normal and I'll be able to vanish and blah, blah, blah. But now that's flipped over on its head, because now even if Gojo comes back, we've got another problem. Now, it's still a weird issue, because they mention it at the first chapter that it's like a deadly poison that you're swallowing, but I think that's kind of just a speculation with the whole finger thing. I think that's really kind of either it was a speculation or a retcon, whatever. But whatever the case, there's still 5 more fingers out there. So, and then is Sukuna just gonna rip off those rest of fingers, the remaining fingers from Yuji, or are they like transferred to his like innate domain that he had been sitting at in Yuji's body? So like every time Yuji congested one, it became one with basically Sukuna's soul. It's kind of just opens up Pandora's box, trying to figure out like how the switch would happen, and if the switch is permanent. So, and it's kind of funny because we don't know if the series had like tailored Sukuna's appearance to Yuji just merely because Yuji was the host. So now will he look like Megumi in his innate domain? And we'll find that out, But I feel like this chapter just really blew the doors off, and it was a great chapter. And because the past couple chapters, it was kind of getting very boring. Not boring, but it was just like way too narrative driven. Like there was way too much, exposition, that it just needed to dial it down a little bit. But We'll see you on the next chapter. All right, y'all. Peace.